Hello everyone, my name is Cassie. I'm the project manager of Team Thrive and I'm joined by Harry, John, Maria and Em. Our app name is Insight. We have designed this name in collaboration with George, the CEO of SPELD, based on the nature of the app in providing insight into the traits and characteristics of the students to educators. We are working with SPELD, an NGO that operates to support students with learning difficulties by providing resources and support tools for parents and education providers. SPELD's objectives are to ensure the needs of students with learning difficulties are met adequately within their schooling environment. It is crucial that education providers implement reasonable adjustments to the student's learning environment. These adjustments can include the provision of technology such as text-to-speech software and changes to assessments, for example, by providing a scribe.
Did you know that up to 3 students in every classroom in New South Wales may experience learning difficulties? You or someone in your class may have experienced dyslexia, for example, which is a difficulty with reading and is one of the most common learning difficulties, affecting between 5 to 10% of people. Unfortunately, not all students with learning difficulties get the help to accommodate their learning needs. In particular, our NGO and the Australian Human Rights Commission flagged inconsistencies between schools, where much-needed in-class adjustments are not sufficiently adopted, the long waiting times between requesting reasonable adjustments and the reasonable adjustments being implemented, as well as the lack of collaborative communication between students, their families, and educators. Schools have a legal obligation under the Disability Standards for Education to consult and collaborate with affected parties in implementing reasonable adjustments. Reasonable adjustments are measures taken to help a student with a learning difficulty access and participate in education on the same basis as other students, whilst balancing the interests of all parties affected.
Insight is a document automation app to help parents and teachers create a profile for students with learning difficulties, assisting teachers to implement reasonable adjustments in classrooms.
In response to the problems previously mentioned, we created Insight. It is an easy-to-use and streamlined platform prompting educators to implementing reasonable adjustments. Insight is a platform for collaboration and consultation between schools, parents or guardians, and students, built to address the legal rights of students. Furthermore, Insight generates a report that is easy to share and outlines students' goals, strengths, and weaknesses for teachers to better understand their needs in classrooms. Our goal is for Insight reports to be used in parent-teacher collaboration or meetings to foster informed discussions and decisions and to be the catalyst for meaningful change in teaching methods.
So this is the Insight Student Profile Generator. You can start by selecting the language, for example, Latin, and this is powered by Google. So you can toggle all these different languages on and off. You also have the opportunity to hear an introduction by clicking the sound icon. But let's get started. The first page is the privacy policy or a disclaimer, which is outlined on SPELD New South Wales website. And this is a requirement in order to progress with the generator. In terms of the relationship with the student, you can go ahead and select or click other. For example, let's say your relationship is aunt, and that requirement goes on through to the first name. So you have to put in a name and grade. So let's say Jane is in grade 5. When it comes to school name, it is optional. So you can go ahead and move on to the next section. Here you can start to input a little bit more information about Jane, for example, her strengths and interests. The way this section of the generator is designed is almost like in a waterfall fashion. So once you complete one question, the next question will pop up. And that's to prevent the user from being overwhelmed with a wide variety of questions. And so let's start building a little bit about building a profile for Jane. So in this case, Jane is interested in making new friends. Maybe she's interested in writing a short story. She struggles to concentrate for a long period of time, but in the past, she's had some math tutoring. In terms of a diagnosis, she doesn't have one. And so once that's completed, we can start to look at specific areas of difficulties. So because she's done math tutoring, let's say she has difficulties with spelling and written expression, and within spelling and written expression, particularly grammar, syntax, etc. From there, we can start to look at the adjustments that she would like to recommend the education provider. So she can select a multitude of adjustments that she'd like to recommend, or be a bit more intentional, select particular ones that are more relevant to herself. For example, when it comes to spelling, she wants a word bank or a glossary of topic. Once that's all completed, you finish the report, and this is when the generator kicks in and uses precedent to put together a really simple scaffold, which you can email to yourself. You also have the opportunity to download it in a PDF form, which lays it out nicely in a document, a one-page document, but also has an expandable transcript at the bottom for you to go through each question and answer. So that completes the application and how it automates a document. From there, you can start over with a new user or send that through to your education provider.
The UX experience process for Insight was to strategize for lower app complexity and ensure visual ease and consideration of target applicants. Teachers may be more inclined to consistently use the application, provided it is easy to navigate, streamlined, and presents information in easily digestible format. As 30 to 40% of learning difficulties are inherited, we also considered an easy layout for parents. Furthermore, many parents or guardians are not aware of a student's rights to adjustments, nor the obligations of schools to enforce those rights in classrooms. By including in the introduction of the app information on the rights of children under the Disability Standards for Education, this will help users understand the obligation of the app under the disability standards, as well as understanding the legal obligations of educators to comply with these standards. We also included hints and tips for explaining complex reasonable adjustments. For example, reasonable adjustments specific to fluency and morphology and what these specific qualities are. In regard to phrasing questions, simple wording was a necessity, as well as replacing the term disability with learning difficulty, considering that some students may not be clinically diagnosed with a disability. Many students are unable to access any affordable diagnosis, so the app also encourages schools to provide support to all students who struggle with reading or any other disability, regardless of the cause. To make the app more personal, we populated the student's name and questions throughout the application once their name was provided.
The Insight app is currently concluding the feedback phase of development. We have conducted extensive testing amongst our group and have received valuable feedback from the SPELD New South Wales team. We will be receiving feedback from members of the community and others in the education space shortly, and we will discuss further implementation of any feedback with SPELD New South Wales. Following this, we will finalise arrangement for the Insight app to be displayed on the SPELD New South Wales website for real-world use.
We prepared a concise handover manual containing a skeleton of our app, setting out all app questions and answer options. We provided a simple process for our client to follow should our client request any changes. Our client informed us that in future, she may like to change the wording of text or add to the adjustments. This table, included in our handover manual, enables our client to fill in all the necessary information for us to promptly fulfill any request. We have also provided instructions on steps to take if legislation changes.
So we're very excited about this app as a communication tool to really help families and teachers support students who have literacy and numeracy difficulties. Thanks so much.